All right, I'm here to talk to Ben Azadi, who has his new book out, Keto Flex, and really a big book that I love that finally came out on kind of taking a metabolic flexibility, that keto and keto for athletes and fasting for athletes. We can kind of get some great information here from Ben, and we're going to dive into it. So thanks, Ben, for coming on my show. And you're Mr. Keto Kamp podcast host and Keto Kamp Academy, and you do a lot of everything.
Thank you, Debbie, for having me. I love seeing all the bookmarks in the book there.
There's a lot of tabs in here, and then I have bookmarks galore. So yeah, awesome. And I wrote notes in my notebook.
I love it.
So let's kind of talk about briefly, I know this could be a whole episode itself, but what brought you to this point of, creating Keto Kamp and creating the Keto Flex? What's your drive, your purpose, your why?
So I got into the health space before keto, health space in general, back in 2008, where I found myself 24-year-old man, obese, physically obese, mentally obese with really bad thoughts, depressed, lost in life. I always say I was tiptoeing my way through life, just hoping to land safely on death's door. At that time, I was going through rock bottom, my version of rock bottom, where I was actually exploring suicide because I was depressed every single day, crying, and I felt really unhealthy. Although I was 24 years old, which is really young, I felt like I was 94 years old. I had debilitating lower back pain. I had knee issues, inflammation, and I had bad addictions, video games, drugs, my environment. So every time I wanted to explore suicide, thank God I would think about my mom, and it would stop me from pursuing that. And I knew I just had to get my act together. And it had to start with my health because I didn't have the energy to do much. So I started to exercise. I started to eat better, following whatever advice I found, like on Men's Health Magazine and livestrong.com and all these old websites. And for the most important thing that I did, though, before I even started my journey of transformation, was accepting responsibility and ownership, where I think a lot of people don't do that. And that word responsibility is so important in all aspects of life, but especially your health. Nobody's responsible for my health. Nobody's responsible for your health. And that word responsibility is your ability to respond to life. Up until that point, before I made any changes, my ability to respond to life was really poor. I was playing the victim. I was blaming my genetics, my enabling family members, my environment. And I said, no longer will I be the victim. I'm going to put my foot down, take ownership, and I'm going to become the victor of my future. So I started to exercise, started to eat better. And 9 months after that decision was made, I lost 80 pounds. I went from 250 pounds down to 170 pounds. I went from 34% body fat down to 6% body fat. I went from size 38 waist in my pants to size 30. So I finally carved out this physical six-pack, which I always dreamed of having, being a kid that was bullied and picked on. But the most important thing that I achieved during that transformation, and still to this day, is a mental six-pack. I started to think better thoughts. I started to become aware of how important your thoughts are. And that's what got me started in the health space. I became a personal trainer. I ended up opening up a CrossFit gym. I was there for 4.5 years before selling my shares and leaving the CrossFit gym. And then, of course, I became certified as an FDN, like you, a functional diagnostic nutrition. And then I started working with, before that, I started actually wanting to explore true health, because although I was fit, I wasn't necessarily healthy. Those are not really synonymous. Yeah, I was a fit, sick person. And I know that you're similar to your story. So I had acne, I had digestive issues, but I had six-pack abs, right? And you would think that I was healthy, but I really wasn't. So I wanted to explore, okay, how can I actually get healthy? And I actually became a vegan for 1.5 years, 100% plant-based, which worked in the beginning and then didn't work after that. But I was very dogmatic about it. This is back in 2012, 2013. And then I started to get into the research of Paul Chek and Dr. Daniel Pompa, Dr. Mercola, and a few other people, Dave Asprey. And I realized, okay, maybe this vegan approach is not healthy for me long-term. And that's when I started to get into the research of ketosis and fasting and different strategies for fasting. And it made a lot of sense to me that our ancestors all did keto and all did fasting. So I went from being a vegan to doing keto with intermittent fasting. And it was just a game changer for me. I was still doing CrossFit back then, and I performed much better as an athlete. I started to make better gains, less soreness. And then eventually I started working with Dr. Dan Pompa, who's now my mentor. And I work with him in a group of about 40 plus doctors. And we look at things clinically. We apply it on ourselves. We experiment. We look at, of course, biohacking things, carnivore. And ever since, I've been on a mission to educate and get the word out there, because I've seen firsthand what not taking responsibility could do to your health. My dad ended up getting type 2 diabetes, which we know is very common in the US. 60% of Americans are diabetic or pre-diabetic. I would actually estimate it's higher than that. And my dad ended up suffering a massive stroke as a result of his diabetes back in 2013. And he ended up passing away in 2014, which led me to a path of a lot of questions. I wanted to know what happened to my dad, how, if I would have applied keto and fasting, would I have been able to save him? And I believe I would have. I believe he would be here to this day if I would have applied this information. So my drive and my purpose is to get the message out there. The mission here at Keto Kamp is to educate and to inspire 1 billion people, to help them see how incredible their body is. It is capable of healing. Every cell has an innate intelligence within it that is designed to heal. And that's what we want to do to get the message out there.
Yeah, right on. It's so great. I love hearing everyone's why, what their story is. I always like to ask everyone that in the beginning when they're on the show, but it's funny where I was saying how this podcast originally was called Fit, Fat, Fast. In 2010, we started it with John Smith, but he came from doing a vegan garden variety podcast for a year or two. And then he realized that vegan work for doing Ironmans too. He was doing endurance racing marathons and Ironmans and lost all this weight. But then he did the same story that many have, that they figured out, okay, this isn't working anymore after a year, and then switched to learning about lower heart rate training and eating fat to burn fat. And so he switched. So anyways, I think there's a lot of people have that story.
Totally.
Vegan
Very
to
common.
carnivore. So
totally.
All right. So let's dive into Keto Flex, because I've said for a long time that, I started doing functional lab testing, or not functional, but metabolic flexibility testing on treadmills back in 2005, and really learned a lot about, training endurance exercise and athletes of all levels, how to burn fat exercise wise. And then we started to learn more about nutrition, how to burn fat, and that, talking about metabolic flexibility is kind of Keto Flex, is that we don't want to do anything all the time and learning, we want to do things on and then cycle it off. And I really find that's more sustainable. And I really love, you talked to my friend Jimmy Moore. I listened to that podcast a few months ago, and it is on and off. We don't need to be like doing something all the time, is what I get from all this stuff I keep reading, right? I mean,
yeah.
What led you to be Keto Flex rather than, hey, everyone, another keto book?
Yeah, totally. And I love Jimmy Moore. Shout out to Jimmy.
Yeah.
So when we think about keto, we know that technically it's not a diet, it's a metabolic process. And I said it earlier, it has been around since humans have existed. Every single one of our ancestors, they did keto. Their environment forced them into periods of ketosis. With that being said, whenever they had the opportunity to eat carbohydrates, whether it was honey or fruit or tubers, they took that opportunity and they flexed out of ketosis. And that is what you said, metabolic flexibility. We want the ability to go back and forth between a sugar burner state and a fat burner state, but we want to primarily stay in that fat burning state, because we know it's highly anti-inflammatory when your cells are burning fat versus sugar. When I was obese, I was a sugar burner, a glucose burner. Most Americans, most humans in this world, at least in first world countries, are sugar burners. And that's highly, highly inflammatory when you're stuck as a sugar burner. First of all, it's not a fun way to live. You have to rely on snacking every 2 to 3 hours, which will raise your glucose. And whenever you have raised glucose for an extended period of time, that's going to age you faster. Not good. So I compare in the book Keto Flex, I gave an analogy of burning sugar versus burning fat. And that is that when we look at the cells in the body, there's about 50 to 70 trillion cells. But out of those trillion cells, we only have 2 primary options for fuel. Either the cells are burning glucose or burning fat. When you are a glucose burner, it creates a lot of oxidation. It creates a lot of toxins. Cells produce energy and toxins the same way if I burn firewood in my room here, it would create smoke and toxins. I compare that, a cell burning glucose, to a Mack truck, a truck that's speeding through your highway with all this smoke coming out of the exhaust pipe. That truck is not going to be healthy for the surrounding environment, very similar to your cell burning glucose. When we could teach the cells to switch over to a different fuel source, fat, that's a cleaner source of energy. I compare that to a Tesla cruising through your streets, that's a better source of energy versus the Mack truck. So that's what we want to do, but we don't want to stay in ketosis forever. And that's what I believe it's important to get out there. And it's kind of a shocker sometimes because I love keto. My company is Keto Kamp. My shirt says ketosis, but I'm not dogmatic about it. It is one tool out of many tools we could use, but it is a very powerful tool when you use it the right way. We want to achieve the ability to become fat adapted, keto adapted, and then go flexing back in and out of ketosis, which, like you said, gives you sustainable results. Not so we don't look at it as a fad diet.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing. It's not a diet, it's a lifestyle. What we're teaching people to be fat adapted, burning fat instead of burning carbs as your main fuel source, and use carbs as your backup fuel. And I say rocket fuel for athletes, because it's great to tap into that energy source at end of a race or end of a long, hard workout, and you try to pick it up and you can get that fuel source. So you want to have that ability, especially as an athlete, to be able to flex back and forth. And it sounds like a lot of people, research coming out that we don't want to be in nutritional ketosis all the time. That's not realistic. And we lose that ability to flex back and forth, similar to what I talked for years about heart rate variability, hormetic stressors. We want to have, that Goldilocks effect. We want to be, well, it's not, we want to go high and low of everything and not just stay one point, but be able to switch back and forth on everything.
That's correct. Yeah, because whenever you switch things up, it creates, your body has to adapt to that. And that's the magic. The magic is in the adaptation. The body wants to survive. When you change things up, whether it is going into a workout fasted versus going into a workout with a meal in your stomach, or when you change your fasting schedule to do longer fasts or shorter fasts, or when you flex in and out of ketosis, these are all hormetic changes to your body, hormesis, and everybody has a different hormetic curve. But as that hormetic curve goes up, as you're creating changes, you're benefiting. But if you just do the same thing over and over, that curve starts to drop and you start to lose its benefits. The perfect example, and it's perfect for your audience, is when you begin to exercise. And let's say you hire a personal trainer. If that personal trainer gives you the same workout week after week after week, you'll plateau. In the beginning, you'll get results like when you do keto, but if you stay in there, that same workout, you plateau. But the greatest personal trainers and fitness coaches understand this. So they're always changing up the routine. One workout will be high reps, low weight. The next workout will be lower reps, higher weight. That forces adaptation. And then good cells get stronger when you force adaptation, and bad cells don't adapt. It is the survival of the fittest, because the number one priority for the human body and the innate intelligence is survival. And that's why we want to mix things up constantly with all the things that we're doing in life.
Yeah. And I think that's great reminder that people, your body's goal is survive. And I was just looking all week long at people's functional labs and assessing them, and Dutch tests and different tests and their thyroid levels, and how it's all kind of based on your body's goals to do whatever it can to survive and, and do what it needs to do to keep going. And it's just amazing how your body will adapt and respond. And you'll see that in functional labs when people have problems and they are struggling. It says, look at those hidden internal stressors. But also, I'll throw in, before I want to dive into the phases, is that I, did 15 Ironmans. I did, I don't know how many marathons. And
wow,
I raced for a long time until I had my adrenal exhaustion, burnout, and breakdown in 2013. But I was doing, say, 2001 to 2013 racing endurance. And I always tell people, okay, I don't lose weight from training Ironman. I'm training 20 hours a week. I wasn't changing anything because my body got so used to going for a 5-7 hour bike ride and running 2-3 hours the next day. That's when it was a perfect example. It's not calories in, calories out, and that your body adapts to that training, that stressor. So it was no big deal for my body to do that because I was doing it for 15 years. So it is true for sure. We need that, switch it up. And looking at genetics too, like my body is actually 72% power athlete, but I was training for endurance sports. So it's like, all right, I got to do some more sprints and do some more heavy weights, but another conversation. But it's just so interesting how you have to, find that right balance for everybody to get that perfect results you are looking for.
Yeah. And there's a lot of nuances. There's no cookie cutter approach to health, to keto, to your exercise. You got to find what works for you and your unique biochemical individual needs. And your story is the perfect example, Debbie, of that hormetic curve, because in the beginning, when you started to do marathons, you were benefiting from it. So that curve was going up, and then you did too much excessive exercise, and all of a sudden it dropped down, and it kept dropping down to the point where you reached adrenal fatigue. And then you had to mix things up to get the benefits back.
Yeah, I know. So for your Keto Flex program, let's kind of dive into the pillars. And then I want to make sure we have time to get into the fasting, because that's everyone's so into keto and so into fasting now. But let's tie it towards the athlete, the low carb athlete, get into that. And then if we have time to get into the changes we make for the female athlete, because you do address females in your book, how fasting's variations are gonna be a little different versus menopausal versus med. So we've talked a lot and trying to, discuss that topic, that women are not small men, that Dr. Stacy Sims brought into our world the last few years ago. That's like, all right, now let's tie that into carbs, because we think we get keto and for athletes think all carbs are bad and carbs are evil. They have to do zero carbs to do what everyone's doing or do carnivore. But all right, we've got a different category we need to address for the athlete, the endurance athlete in different types of sports. So let's kind of let you take it away in the Keto Flex, how you kind of briefly go into the different pillars, and then people can read more in the book, obviously.
Yeah, in the book, I have my 4 pillars, as you mentioned, which I outlined step-by-step instructions on how to do this the right way, how to get fat adapted. So the first pillar is called adapt, because that's where I'm teaching you how to get fat adapted. I gave the analogy of burning sugar versus burning fat. We teach your body to burn fat instead of sugar in 14 days or so, is that protocol in there, which gets you more metabolically flexible. After we get you fat adapted, then we practice intermittent fasting strategies, which is the second pillar called fast. I think keto and fasting go hand in hand. They both do a really good job at keeping glucose and insulin low, and fasting just takes it to another level, especially with your training. I love going into a workout in the fasted state. For example, I did one earlier today, especially if your goal is fat loss, because when you go into a workout with an empty stomach, you're fasted. Dr. Benjamin Bickman explains as well. You put your fat stores at the front of this metabolic bus to be burned for energy first, versus having a protein shake or a meal before the workout. You would put the calories from that meal at the front of the metabolic bus, and then it'll take longer to tap into your fat stores. So that's why I love going into a workout in the fasted state. Plus, you get to use all that blood flow for the workout, whether it's a run or a CrossFit workout, whatever it is. You are just so in tune with that workout. So the workouts are going to be better. The third pillar in the Keto Flex book is phase. Phase meaning we're phasing out all carbohydrates, really forcing adaptation, and we're doing carnivore. We're doing a variation of carnivore. I outlined 4 ways to do it. After that, once you complete those 3 pillars, it should take you about 60 to 90 days on average. Then you are now what's considered keto adapted. Keto adapted is different than fat adapted. And it's now keto adaptation means your body, your mitochondria and your cells are now using ketones as the preferred fuel source. That takes a little bit longer. But at this point, now you could flex in and out of ketosis. And like to your point, Debbie, if you're a woman who has a menstrual cycle, then you would do it different than a woman who is postmenopausal or a man. And how you would do it different is you would actually flex out of ketosis and do more higher healthy carbs, paleo-ish, the 5 to 7 days before the period. And that's because progesterone is very low during those days. And if you just do more keto and more fasting, you'll deplete progesterone even more. And that'll lead to cravings. It'll lead to maybe a heavy period or an irregular period. And that's not good. But by having higher healthy carbs, 100 to 150 grams of healthy carbs every single day for those 5 to 7 days before the period, you're building progesterone, which is going to help with cravings. It's going to help with mood and with the monthly cycle. So that's one perfect example over there. And then, as you mentioned, I talk about how to do it for men and postmenopausal women. So that's the goal. And the more active you are, the more wiggle room you have. Meaning, in general, the first pillar is going to teach you, if you want to get into ketosis, you want to increase your healthy fat and decrease your total carbs to eventually go below 50 grams. If you're very active, that could probably be 75 grams of carbs. So you could actually get away with more carbs and still be able to benefit from the pillar. So you got to keep that into consideration. Those who are very active have more wiggle room for carbohydrates each day.
Have you ever researched for workout style? Like if you're doing a low heart rate workout as you're going for a swim or run or hike or bike ride, keeping that aerobic heart rate versus doing a higher intensity workout, when is it good to be fasted and when should you have a little something? Because I've read some articles that said like women did better having a little something before they work out versus men afterwards. But then I always feel better not eating because, as you said, your blood's not into your digestive system, is in your muscles. So not eating anything feels better. But then it's always, to me, like that fine line of when is it going to be too much stress on your body when you're doing a workout? Like, what is that? I know it's going to be individualized, but if I work out 2 hours, am I causing more stress being fasted if my heart rate's above a certain point? So it gets so nitty gritty, but I think there's, really individualizing it a little bit. When is it good or bad not to fast?
Yeah, you bring up a good point. No, I haven't read any studies on it, but it would make sense that if you are in a high stressful state, let's say you had a poor night of sleep, you have a lot of mental stress from work, probably not a good idea to do a fasted workout with heavy, intense training, because fasting is a stressor. And if you already have your stress bucket full because your sleep is not good and you're just mentally, emotionally stressed, adding more stress, that hormetic curve will drop down. So I think it's going to be important for the person, the individual, to assess their stress levels and make sure their sleep is on point. Now, if you're getting quality sleep and you're mastering your stress, I think you could benefit, even if it's a 2-hour workout or a 1-hour workout of high intensity. You just got to keep in mind, if your goal is to build a lot of muscle, then you probably want to have some aminos during the workout, some amino acids, or have a high protein meal right after the workout. So it's going to be catered to the individual, but there's no cookie cutter approach to this. You got to really figure out what works best for you. I prefer to work out in the fasted state most of the times. Like you said, I feel great. I feel awesome. And if it's like a cardio workout, I'll probably continue fasting after the workout. But if I did strength training like I did today, then I'll have a high protein meal after the workout. So that's the way that I personally do it.
Yeah. What the word you keep said a few times is cookie cutter. There is no cookie cutter approach. And that's what I keep trying to share, that everyone, as we learn FDN and nutritional therapy, we are unique bio individuals, and it's N equals 1. It's experimenting with your own body, because we know your microbiome, your genetics, your lifestyle stressors, your sleep. I mean, there's so many factors that go into what you want to recommend. It's like, this is a template. This is not exact. And I think a lot of people try to do, okay, I'm supposed to just do 50 grams of carbs and I'm supposed to do everything fasted, but then, that works for some, and then it doesn't work for others, that you have to really experiment and tweak from there. It's not like, this is a blueprint, it's a template.
It's the truth. And a lot of people don't want to hear that. They just want to hear, okay, what do I have to do? Yeah, tell me what to do. Make it easy as possible. And I wish I could. We're giving you the framework here, but then you have to apply it and see if you need more fasting, less fasting, more keto, less keto. It's going to be so different depending on so many different variables, to your point. So we'll give you the framework, but it's up to you to actually do the work, get some lab work done, and see what's actually working for you or working against you.
So going back to the phases, the pillars that we're working on, once you're fat adapted, and then going to some intermittent fasting, you're doing like an 18-hour intermittent fast, or I know some people say like 12 to 15 hours. What do you call the intermittent fasting phase time?
I like 18 hours for most people on most days.
Yeah. And then you're teaching them how to eat in that feeding window, eating like 2 meals and no snacking.
That's the goal. Exactly. It's to eat, and let's say it's a 12 to 6 p.m. window. Then you would have 2 meals. You would have a meal at 12 p.m. and a meal finished at 6 p.m. Ideally keto-friendly meals, so you're still in ketosis. But it doesn't have to be 12 to 6. If you do better with breakfast, and most women actually do better with breakfast, then you'll have your breakfast. It could be like a 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. window, or a 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. window. But yeah, I like an 18-6 for most people. That's enough to get a lot of the benefits of the fast, or to get some of the autophagy and some fat loss benefits as well.
And I think it's also tying in that intuition And it's like what I did the day before. Some days I can go until 11 or 12, but then I need to pay attention those days that, all right, I'm kind of feeling already hungry and it's 8 a.m. Do I just push through it because I'm tough and wait till 11, even though I'm hungry? And as an athlete, I think we need to pay attention. I did a lot of exercise yesterday. My body probably needs a little more nutrition today. I'm going to switch up my eating window. And because I used to be so strict and ignore those red flags that I need to now, I'm like, my body's telling me I should break that fast and have a shake now. And not be freaking out that I'm not in my 5-hour or 6-hour eating window, and be okay with that, because I think we're so type A driven, ambitious, high performing individuals here that we have to really say, okay, this isn't the time that you should be so strict and your body's saying, feed me. And when
great point. I agree. I always say there's no such thing as a failed fast. So if you are set out to do 18 hours tomorrow, but you stop at 14 hours, 15 hours, because your body's just giving you signals, that was a success. You listen to your body. You still benefited from those 14, 15 hours. So don't beat yourself up. A lot of people are comparing their fast to other people's fast, especially male and female, right? Men are going to be able to fast and do more keto, be more aggressive, much easier than females. Females have a 28, or if you're a menstruating woman, you have a 28-day hormonal cycle. Men just 24 hours, just refreshing, 24 hours, 24 hours. So you got to keep that in mind. Don't compare your results to men, completely different hormonal landscape.
Yeah. And that's what I love. Like, I forgot, I'm charging my Oura ring and I always forget to put it back on, but I see an Oura ring, but looking at that data and using that to know, as well as your training workout or training peaks, and put that all together to figure out your fasting window. And I know there's a new app called Wild AI that Stacy Sims, some other people in Europe are putting together, that's beta testing right now, that you can track your cycle and all that. And I know Dr. Mindy's putting stuff together, her new book, and I'm sure she'll put an app together, but it is, putting all that data to figure out more individualized for the female athlete, when to do a little more higher carbs, when to do your harder workouts, more intensity workouts you can do here, and when you need to stay low and easy, like the week before your cycle begins, and really dial it in a lot more for fasting window and your carb timing, I think, for athletes and your workouts.
Yeah, those tools are incredible. So the Oura ring is something your audience could get. Some of them probably already have it. It'll let you know, did your heart rate variability drop? Did your resting heart rate go up? Your body temperature? And you could get these signals and feedback from the device or an app, like you mentioned. And then you could know if this is going to be if you had planned a hard workout, then maybe it's not a good day for a hard workout. If you see your heart rate variability drop or your resting heart rate was elevated, maybe it's more of a day where you feast, not fast, and maybe do some lighter activity. So that feedback is essential. I use mine to give me feedback all the time. And it lets you know what you're doing is working for you or against you. If you ate too close to bed, you're going to see the numbers tank. But if you're doing things the right way, you should see things improve on devices like the Oura Ring or these apps.
And are you combining that with a CGM, NutriSense, or another product?
Yeah, I have. I think a CGM is an amazing tool. One of the best things you can do. So I've worn a CGM for 3 months. I did a couple months last year and then a month this year. And that is great feedback, because not only will it get you some feedback on what food is doing in terms of carbohydrates, but if you're doing keto, you're probably going to think that you're going to have good glucose levels. But if you're eating foods that you have a sensitivity to, you'll see that spike up your glucose, and you could identify foods that you are sensitive to. Like I got some great feedback to understand, I love eating coconut whipped cream, but apparently it jacks up my glucose. So I can't really have that right now until I work on my gut a little bit more. So yeah, a CGM, a continuous glucose monitor, is a game changer, not just for diabetics. It should be essential for every diabetic, but also just for being proactive and tying in the foods you're eating to what happens in your body.
Yeah, I find it really fascinating to see how it changes. I had one last September. I'm going to order one again and do it for the next 3 months, just because I want to optimize my health and figure out what foods are reactive because I'm not the food sensitivity test. I swear I could do 3 in one day and there'll be different results. No matter how much I spend, yeah. I think it's better to do a NutriSense or levels or whatever CGM you want to use and track. Cause I found like chewing gum would raise my blood sugar with aspartame in it. And then I moved to San Diego from Seattle last summer and I found tacos are very good down here. I never ate tacos, but that corn tortilla, which does not do well. I try to avoid corn, but then I started having it sometimes like, oh, that is horrible in my body. Totally spiked up my blood sugar. So I switched to like a lettuce wrap or just don't eat the tortilla. But I wouldn't be as motivated to do that if I didn't see what it really did to my blood sugar. So just getting that biofeedback, so much more motivating.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree with you on the food sensitivity test. I'm not a big fan of them because the microbiome is changing so much. And let's face it, most people have leaky gut, right? But if you have a CGM, that'll give you feedback, accurate feedback. You could isolate the food that you ate to see if that's what caused it. And then to your point, again, there's a restaurant that I go to here I live in Bay Harbor Islands called Mestizo, and they're great. And I usually go there on like my flex days, my feast days. So they have this appetizer called corn chitas, which is like corn on the cob with some like white cheese. And then I usually get some they have like a mashed potato, garlic mashed potato thing with a New York strip. And I was wearing my CGM a few weeks ago when I was there. And oh my gosh, my glucose went up to 185 after eating that meal. And I said, all right, I'm not having this for a while. So I've been there a few times since, and I didn't get the corn chitas or the mashed potato. I just got it bok choy instead. You know, I wouldn't have known that it went that high. My glucose in the fasted state runs around 75, 85, 100. It went over 100 points from that meal. And I would have not known that if it wasn't for that CGM. So it's important to see what's going on.
Yeah. So I'm going to say this before I forget, I'm writing that down, but Prolon, my client just did, and we'll get to fasting in a moment, but I was fascinated with the Prolon 5-day fast mimicking diet. His blood sugar has been awesome. And then we put him on the Prolon and his blood sugar was spiking every time the dinner because it was more carby. It's like, wait, this is supposed to be a fasting mimicking plan, but the products, ingredients in the soups and packaged foods, which I'm not a fan of, but it just was easier for someone that's busy not to think about a no-brainer program. But side note, it was totally messed up his blood glucose, ironically. So,
I believe it. I think Prolon, I've done some work with them. I think Prolon fasting mimicking diet is an amazing tool for somebody who's eating a standard American diet who wants to transition and get the benefits of fasting. But if you're already doing fasting and keto, for me, it's kind of going a step backwards. And especially if you have SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, there's a lot of inulin in their products. At least there used to be, they changed it up. That could flare you up. And then, like you said, there's a lot of ingredients there that could cause you might be sensitive to, that could cause a glucose spike. So I see it for people who are standard American diet, but not if you're already doing fasting strategies in keto.
Yeah. Okay. And then the next question before fasting is the keto to carnivore. Why do you feel like it's good to switch up? Does that mean, that flex to go high fat? Because, your book, you're talking about traditional keto is like 90% fat to 60%. And then there's switch to being the carnivore phase, doing high protein and fats, and then keeping your carbs kind of that steady level the whole time. Talk a little bit about that and then how we can adapt it for the athlete.
I think carnivore is terrific for most people because, like I mentioned, most people have leaky gut. They are eating vegetables and plants that have anti-nutrients in them, which can make their leaky gut worse. Plants don't want to be eaten. They have developed these defense mechanisms over many, many years ago because they couldn't run away. They couldn't claw at another predator. They had to create these poisons, the toxins, essentially. So when we eat them and eat them all the time, it's too much for the body to handle. And it could actually poke holes in your intestinal lining. It could open up your tight junctions. So carnivore is a way to eliminate all that. It's like it's an elimination diet, essentially. So you're able to really heal the gut and maximize the benefits of flexing once you go into flexing and start introducing more fruits and vegetables. So I love that. Now for carnivore, for athletes, how could you apply carnivore to athletes? I would incorporate honey. If you're very active and you're doing carnivore. Now, it's only 30 days that you're doing the carnivore for in my book. But if you're very active, like the first time I did carnivore and I was training hard, that first week I was bonking, and I'm very metabolically flexible, but oh my God, I was doing sprints and I'm like, man, I feel more winded than I usually am. So I started to incorporate a little bit of some raw honey, like a couple teaspoons before the workout, and it made a big difference for me. So that's what I would recommend. And technically it comes from an insect. So you are still in the carnivore world there, and there's no anti-nutrients in it. That's one way to do it. And then there's also a great product called Energy Bits. Are you familiar with Energy Bits?
Yeah, I interviewed them a long time ago.
Yeah, so they make a great product with spirulina and algae, no anti-nutrients. Technically it's not carnivore, but I would say it fits right into carnivore because there's no anti-nutrients. And the goal of doing carnivore is to eliminate anti-nutrients. So that could be something else you could incorporate as a biohack if you're an athlete who's doing carnivore.
Yes, that's good. I think the honey is a good trick. And I think, timing that depending on the workout intensity would be good, because if you're doing a maffetone type of low heart rate fat burner workout, maybe you just need some elemental sea salted water, whatever electrolytes in your water, and you're fine. Certain point, maybe if it's 2 hours more, then you need to add a little more fuel food wise, but honey before a more intense workout would be good. And then also we always hear about that before sleep too, for people that are not sleeping through the night. If you wake up middle of the night, having a little honey for bedtime. But I think honey people can find it ones. I know Beekeepers is a big one, but at farmers market, I know they always have someone selling honey.
And you're supporting local farmers too. So that's a win-win. Yeah.
I'm all about the farmers market, especially living down here in North San Diego. There's one like every day somewhere.
Yeah. San Diego is beautiful. I was supposed to be there this month, but Keto Palooza ended up canceling the event. So I won't be there probably till next year.
There's Low Carb USA's end of the month.
Right. I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah. Finally a conference. And then there's the keto, the one in Vegas in October.
Yeah.
I'm going to, right?
That's going to be fun. I'm glad that the conferences are in person or starting to pop up. Thank God.
FDN asked me to work at the booth at Low Carb USA. I'm like, sorry, I want to go to the conference. I'm so excited to go to sessions and see everyone. So, all right, let's dive into fasting and fasting for athletes and any specific things for women. Well, you guys have to get the book because your book's so easy to read. It's very simple, because I think some books get too sciencey and you have to be an exercise physiologist to understand, or scientist to really understand a lot of the books out there, but yours is very user friendly. And I think people for sure have to read it, but if we can touch on fasting variations, I think it's a great section in your book, and how we can implement them and when is it appropriate to intermittent fast and add those variations.
Yeah, thank you for that. The goal was to write a book that was easy to read, but also had the science to back it up. And I feel like we accomplished that. So thank you. Yeah. Fasting is amazing. It's one of the best ways to harness this innate intelligence that we have within us. I believe, my premise is that the body could heal itself as long as you do 3 things, and I talk about in the book. Identify the interference, number 1. Number 2, remove the interference. And number 3, allow your body to heal. Fasting is one of the best ways to harness this innate intelligence within ourselves to start removing the interference. We know that there's a process called autophagy that takes place during a fast. Now, it also takes place during exercise, and you could get even more with the fasted workout. But autophagy, the Greek definition is eat thyself. The body is so stinking smart. I mentioned that number 1 priority is survival. So when you're not eating food, you're not getting food energy into your mouth, well, the innate intelligence is called to get energy from somewhere. So where does it go? It goes and it looks for cells that are damaged, mitochondria that are damaged, inflamed, and it starts to repair that. Think of an intracellular Pac-Man going within your cells, cleaning out the junk, starting to fix things and improve it, like remodeling a house. And then now you have a healthier cell that's functioning better. And it goes a step further. If the innate intelligence has determined that a cell has no function, it is what's called a senescent cell. Some people call it zombie cells. Then it sends a signal. The innate intelligence sends a signal to just kill that cell via apoptosis, which is programmed cell death, cell suicide. And then it stimulates a new cell, which is a stem cell. This is like, think of a stem cell as somebody who just graduated from college and they just landed their first job and they are ready to put in some amazing work. They're fresh, they're motivated and inspired to go do some work. That's what a stem cell is. And your body's activating that through this amazing process. And then it could be used for your liver cells, for the brain cells, for the kidney. It'll direct it wherever the body feels like it needs to go. All of this is happening during a fast. That's how incredible the human body is. It's one of the best ways to prevent diseases like cancer. It's one of the best ways to reverse metabolic conditions like insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes. Now with fasting, we do want to change up the schedule. We talked a little bit about how to do it with the workout. You got to really see what your stress levels are, but there's different ways to practice fasting. There's a 24-hour fast that you could do once a week. I talk about it in the book. I love doing a 24-hour fast, just having water and sea salt and electrolytes, minerals. I like doing that for 24 hours once a week, because you're going to really reset the gut, to use Dr. Mindy's word, reset. You're going to heal the gut, because there's some research that shows 24-hour fast, MIT research 24-hour fast could reset the gut and strengthen intestinal stem cells in mice. That's one way to do it. There's block fasting, where you do 3 or more days. Of course, you want to do that at the right time. And then what can you have during a fast, especially as an athlete? If you want to get the most benefit from your fast, you want to make sure you're having water, of course, but you're having electrolytes, sea salt, and minerals. Those are going to be important. I'm not a big fan of taking other supplements with herbs and other things that have calories in it, just because it'll push your innate intelligence a certain direction. With that being said, there are things that are called crutches, like a bulletproof coffee is a crutch. Bone broth fast is a crutch. Having some fat, low protein is a crutch. You won't get as much benefits as just doing water, but that's fine if you're new to it and you want to use it as a crutch. But if you want to maximize it, stick with water and electrolytes, especially if you're an athlete. You want to really up the game with minerals and electrolytes even further to make sure you're replenishing it consistently.
And I would think that time that you do an OMAD 24-hour fast, we would want to just do low movement type of activity throughout the day, like walking, or maybe if you play golf, that seems low activity to me, but doing low stuff. Don't do a 2, 3, 4 hour bike ride or, hard run workout. Cause I think that is when you put stress in your body, when you try to time your 24-hour fast meal to meal with exercise. Cause I know Dr. Mindy had a post the other day or video she was doing on exercise, and I keep trying to watch and read what people say. And a lot of people are like, hey, what do I do for exercise? And I think you have to really make sure those times that you're fasting, we want to avoid extra stressors, right? So let the body heal thyself by not doing the exercise. Like move, don't sit on your butt, watch TV all day, but maybe just do some low recovery day, and that's your kind of off day.
That's right. It's great advice. If you're going to do a 24-hour fast or even longer, you don't want to be too active. Yes, you want to move, like to your point, but you don't want to be doing CrossFit workouts and marathon trainings and long cycling rides and wind sprints. That's going to be reserved for days where you have a shorter fast. Absolutely. I agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, drinking wise, I think is it okay to do that crutch and do like a bone broth fast and then do, the dinner? Or is it, you're saying do that in the beginning, then work towards, you're better off, get more cell autophagy if you just do the mineral water all day long, electrolytes.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the ultimate goal.
Yeah, and the ultimate goal is to do just water and electrolytes. Yeah, that's how you're going to maximize the benefits from your fast. But if it's too challenging, then you could throw in a crutch. I'm fine with that. Yeah.
And then take out those supplements. Like if people are all on gut healing protocols and all these herbs, they want to just eliminate everything for the day. And maybe I've heard, you can do, when you do enzymes or berberine and anything, where you just like I always feel like we need a body of rest of taking only supplements too. It's like, can we just let the body be natural?
Yeah, because you're right. Because when you take the supplements, you start the digestive process. So you might lose some of those digestive benefits from the fast. And then if you're taking berberine, I'm a big fan of berberine, but that'll lower your blood glucose. And if you're fasting, you're already lowering your blood glucose. So that could be just too much. So yeah, it's a good idea to just stick with water and minerals during that fast. That's the best option for you.
Have you ever used a Keton hypertonic minerals? Ben Greenfield talks about that in the mornings, and isotonic minerals at night from Keton, the quicksilver cells now.
No, I have never used it, but I looked them up and it looks like a good resource. Yeah.
Yeah. They have their glass vials that you break each end and pour it into your water, but now they have a big bottle people can get on full script. But I'm in love with Rob Wolf, and we talked to him in a couple months on the LMNT salts. And those should be allowed, right? Are we allowed those?
Yeah. I like Rob Wolf's products. I like them. I like Redmond's Relight. Just keep in mind, if you're doing the ones that have stevia in it, for some people it could cause a glucose insulin response. So it's always best to do that in the flavor.
I can't do any of those sugar sweeteners.
Oh, it does.
Yeah. They really, so I've really gone through a lot of experimentation with what electrolytes to have, because so many of them have, even Seeking Health, they have different sweeteners, and Jigsaw Health has different hydration packs. And I'm super sensitive. I'll get a headache right away.
Wow.
Like in seconds from them. But I know those, and the glucose monitors will tell you as well what works for you. But again, N equals 1.
Exactly. Everybody's different. Yep.
Yeah. So the OMAD is like the one variation. What about for athletes? You think, once a quarter, maybe your off season, we should do a 3-day, or, go from 24 to 3 is a lot, but like build up to a 48-hour fast? Or what do you suggest for people that are a little more active and healthy on the outside, maybe not healthy on the inside? So, because I always tell people we want to be fit and healthy from the inside out. So what are some suggestions you have that people can read more about in your book?
Inside out. That's the way to do it. So I like the idea of doing a 3 to 5 day water fast once per year for the benefits of the maximum autophagy benefits that Dr. Thomas Seyfried from Boston College has literally seen tumors shrink before his eyes when they hit this max autophagy state. And you only could get that if you're doing a longer fast. Now, if you're an athlete, that's not the week to train. That's the week to rest, to recover, let your body use its resources for healing. But doing that once a year and scheduling that and having a structure in place, maybe looking at your glucose and ketones, that could be a good idea. A 48-hour fast is great as well, for somebody who has a lot of extra weight on them. But if you're somewhat healthy and you want to throw in a 24-hour fast, you could benefit from that. You'll get some more autophagy, some more gut healing, but that's not when you're going to train. It's the theme of the conversation. That's where you rest, relax, and repair. And then you break the fast the right way, because it's important. How you break the fast is almost as important as the fast itself. You got to break it the right way. And then you could go back to your regular routine of training. So
what is your suggestions for breaking your fast the right way?
So if it's let's say it's 48 hours or less, then you could you don't have to be as restrictive. I like breaking it with protein and fat, not carbohydrates. Bone broth would be great. Maybe a piece of steak, having digestive enzymes beforehand could be great with green leafy vegetables. A protein shake could be great. If you're going longer than 48 hours and doing that block fast, you got to be more strategic. And because a couple of reasons why. Your digestive system has completely rested for 3 to 5 days. Then you have your bacteria, good and bad, that are now starved down. Then if you just break your fast going all in, it's rough on your digestive system. You might get some stomach pain. So you want to go very low and slow. You don't want to have too much protein. You want to stick with foods that are easy to digest for a longer fast. Those are going to be maybe avocados, some eggs, some steamed veggies, but you want to break it the right way. On my YouTube channel, I have a video on how to break a block fast, and it's a 2-day structure. And I give the exact breakdown depending on how much you weigh, how many calories you want, how much protein. So you got to really be strategic with it.
That's good. So one thing I wrote down, thought I had for when Dr. Minnie and I did podcasts together, the liver and detoxification, because everyone I seem to work with in being a health coach and doing health investigation now seems to have liver congestion. It's like impossible not to in our world. But how would you go about preparing the liver before you go into a cell autophagy? Because I think most people have liver congestion, so they're rinse and wash, detox phase 1 and phase 2, and their drainage pathways, phase 3, are not functioning at optimal levels. So here we have all these toxins stored in our fat cells. We start to get keto, we start to burn fat for fuel. Now we've got all these toxins circulating in our body. They have nowhere to go because we don't have anybody to escort them out, or they try to get out and they can't get out. So what should we do to prepare our body for being into nutritional ketosis and when we're doing cell autophagy fasting? Have you found any great things to dive into briefly?
Yeah, absolutely. It's an important topic. The liver is the soccer mom organ, right? She does everything for us. And We haven't treated her well. We treated the liver very poorly with medications and processed carbs and toxins and alcohol. So, I talk about this in the book, bitter for the liver. It's important. These are downstream tips. Incorporate more bitters, and those are going to be apple cider vinegar, arugula, dandelion tea, dandelion greens, ginger tea, artichokes. These are going to be important to support the liver. Milk thistle tea, rosemary, thyme. These are all going to be great, fantastic for the liver. It'll help support it to produce healthy bile. Bile not only helps you break down fat, but it also has a detoxification effect as well. And then you could go a little bit more upstream. Actually, it's still downstream, but it's a little bit more of a powerful tip than the bitters. And that could be a castor oil pack, could be terrific, where you just put a castor oil pack overnight. Coffee enemas could be terrific. Avoiding alcohol, of course, could be terrific. But yeah, you want to make sure those detox pathways are open. You could work on the lymphatic system as well. If you're active, you're already working on that. Maybe do some dry brushing as well. Yeah. Trampoline jumping. Yep, exactly. Right behind you is a trampoline, jumping up and down, jumping jacks too. So yeah, you want to find ways on a consistent basis to do that, to sweat. Red light therapy is also great. Sauna is great. So these are so many things we can do, but we got to do them and we got to be consistent with them, because if you don't have your detox pathways open, and if you have a sluggish liver, those toxins that are now dumped into the bloodstream when you burn fat become reabsorbed and you feel like crap, and your body will actually slow down fat burning, all for the sake of survival. If it knows every time you burn fat, you dump toxins, it's not going to want that. So it actually could create weight loss resistance. So by following these simple tips and being consistent with it, you could overcome weight loss resistance.
Well, yeah, it definitely backfires if you start this and your liver's congested. I've had clients actually start to feel more puffiness, gaining weight, because their toxins, their drainage pathways were not open. So now it's like, okay, we still have some things to work on before we go into the next phase of your protocol. That I always find number one is like, let's start on digestion, how, what, when, and why you're eating. And then let's work on, is your liver functioning? What can we do to optimize it? Just like dandelion herbal tea, sipping that throughout the day, and having apple cider vinegar with lemon and cayenne pepper and cinnamon right before you eat. Or, it's just amazing. Just different things you can do that aren't all in a pill form, because I'm trying to find nutritional therapy ways for people, so we're not taking 20 supplements, because I feel like we aren't even breaking down and absorbing them, getting them into the body half the time. So it's really look at nutritional sources as well as lifestyle habits.
That's right. Yeah, I'm with you on that one. It's important. I mean, the more consistent you are, the more benefits you're going to get. It's not too difficult to do that. Having a shot of apple cider vinegar before a meal, or drinking some dandelion tea, milk thistle tea, or ginger tea, just mix it up. And the more consistent you are, the better results you get.
I found I had this pitcher that I didn't know until we moved last year. I'm like, oh, this is great. I can fill hot water in it and then put it, or brew tea, or put it outside, make sun tea. But I just go put, 4 tea bags in it. And I like the dandelion, then I have turmeric blend, and then a liver detox one. And then I'll just put them in, have it as iced tea or poured over ice. And it's great to have something different than water gets so boring. And I think that's a great little solution. Don't think of it as benefiting my liver. Just think it's something to drink and it hydrate and it tastes good. Something else than, or put it with some sparkling water. So I think you have to be creative and work on, food, healing yourself combined with the fasting.
Yeah, I love that idea. You're so right. And it tastes good. It's not like you're drinking something that tastes disgusting. So I love that idea.
I know. Oh, and then my new thing, I was just telling my client, like the chocolate sea salt from LMNT, I was like, oh, that sounds horrible. But I put it in my protein smoothie 2 days ago. It is the best. Add the avocado and put your protein and greens in there. That's my new discovery. That's worked really. That
sounds good, actually.
So I was trying to text Rob Wolf's company, like, guys, you're forgetting not just the cocktails and water, but put it in your shake. It just made it taste so good. Okay, so last little bit, we have anything we want to hit on the fasting variations with the style of workout, like the strength hit, low heart rate. You're talking about for women in your book, mentioned something about the best time cycling females to exercise. And it was like the week before their cycle, we're supposed to do lower heart rate, exercise easier week, kind of be loving to your body that week before. And then when your cycle starts, I've read your hormones are more like a man's hormones. You can just hit it, do a little more intense workouts. What do you find for timing those workouts based on fasting and low carb, high carb?
Yeah, you said it. So for the cycling women, exactly that, especially day 6 through day 13 after the cycles, when testosterone peaks, you have the highest amount of testosterone and estrogen. So that's a great week to do more strength training, increase your protein, more muscle building. That's also a great time to ask for a raise or speak on stage or do something where you need to have more confidence, because that testosterone will help you with that. So day 6 through day 13. Now it could change. It could be for a woman day 7 through day 14, but somewhere in that range there, the second week after your cycle is when you want to do most of your strength training. That could be a sweet spot for you.
Awesome. All right, so let's finish up. People can get your book on Amazon. Do bookstores no one sells books at the bookstore? There are no bookstores. Everything has to be on Amazon nowadays. I feel bad.
Unfortunately, I love bookstores. I get so excited when I find one, but yeah, it's mostly Amazon these days.
All right, so Keto Flex, and how can people learn more about Keto Academy? Keto Kamp Academy.
Thank you, Debbie. I would recommend starting with the book. The book you could get over at ketoflexbook.com, which goes to the Amazon page. It's currently available on paperback and on Kindle. And then I'm actually working on the Audible. I'm 61 pages down, still got a ways to go, but I'm reading the Audible version of it, going into the studio. That'll be out hopefully this year. And then if you want to learn more about my other work, my YouTube channel would be a great resource. Just type in Keto Kamp, Kamp with the K on YouTube. We have the Keto Kamp podcast. And then I'm on all social media platforms where you could find me. Just type in my name. I'm very, very accessible.
So do you set boundaries? Because I get sick of social media, and I don't know how these people, you guys, Mindy, I mean, I know everyone has their team of people helping them as you guys get so big, but do you set boundaries of when you're online and working and when you're doing non-work social media?
Yeah, for
stuff?
sure. You got to set boundaries. You can't let social media consume you. You just be a creator on there and then exit. Thankfully, I do have a team as well who helps me with posting and getting back to comments sometimes and messages. And yeah, you got to set boundaries, especially apps like TikTok. TikTok I have found to be highly, highly addictive. So when I go on TikTok, I'll post a video and then I'm off of there. Once I find one video on my little For You page, 30 minutes in, I'm like, where has the time gone? Yeah. So if I do dedicate time to TikTok, because I do have some fun watching videos on there, it'll be later in the day when I'm done with my work. So I set those boundaries to, I don't go on social media typically during my, before 6 p.m.
Good job. Yeah. I always am asking people that are all over. I'm like, how do you do it and not burn yourself out? And, we have to practice what we preach as health coaches, that, disconnect, unplug, disconnect, connect with your family, your spouse, kids, and be only available, say, before 7, and I'm not available till after 9 a.m., or else you're just breaking your own self down and having this constant stressors in your life and not that balance with the happiness and play part.
I agree, especially the morning and before bed. Those are 2 times you want to be very protective. I don't even look at my phone for an hour after I wake up. And then the same thing before bed. I'm not on my phone before bed. Those are 2 times where the subconscious mind is very impressionable. Mm-hmm. And you want to make sure you're feeding it what you want to feed it. So meditation or reading a book or listening to a podcast. So that's the time where you don't want to be on social media.
Yeah, I know. So lastly, what do you do to start your day?
Well, I have a extensive routine.
Okay, 1 minute.
Yeah, I write down my goals. Well, first of all, I write down what I'm grateful for, 10 things or so that I'm grateful for. And then I write down my goals in present tense. So I have notebook after notebook. I have like 20 plus notebooks of just filled goals and gratitude. I haven't missed a day in over 5 years. So I write that down. And then I go take my dog for a walk as the sun is coming up. I'll get sunlight through my eyes on my skin, 20-minute walk with my dog. And then I start making my French press coffee. Mm-hmm. And I'm listening to an audiobook as I'm doing that. And then I go on my balcony or on my rooftop and I'm doing more self-development as I drink my coffee. And then I'll do some red light therapy here. I have 4 panels as I listen to more of an audiobook. And then I start my day around 9 a.m. So it's like an hour and a half, 2-hour routine before I even start my day.
Nice. Lucky you. Yeah, that's what I kind of get up and go work out. And then I do love the French press, kind of make it before I work out, so it's ready when we get back and have my
Nice.
water. But I love, my ritual, I wake up doing the French press and kind of move, and then I go for my morning workout outside and at sunrise. So it is.
I love it. That's great.
Great time. So, all right, we'll put all the links in the show notes for Ben, and hopefully you guys find his book on Keto Kamp or Keto Flex, and then look up Keto Kamp. We'll put the YouTube video and podcast and all your stuff. You've got lots going on. So congratulations for building success and all that you've done over the years. You've kind of been on a mission. Good job.
Thank you, Debbie. I appreciate you and your work. And it was a pleasure being on your podcast. It was an awesome conversation. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.